Um, did everybody have a good weekend? That is like first and foremost. Did you guys get a good break? Everyone get a nice little time away from work and charts and everything to recharge the brains because we have a busy week of everything coming this week. So I want to make sure you guys are fresh and ready to go. Good. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Very good. It was a good weekend for me as well. Today has been just the most typical Monday of Mondays where I haven't had a chance to even breathe deeply. I can only just take quick breaths because that's all there's time for. So definitely a crazy Monday, but a good weekend, and all went well. Okay, so very good. Very nice to have you guys. For anybody that's visiting for the first time, I am what we affectionately refer to as Jared Johnson. And most of you guys know me. I've met several of you, and many of you have been on this webinar, Monday webinar before. So for the welcoming back people, the returning visitors, very welcome to you guys. For the regular members, always good to see you guys. And for anybody that's here for the first time, very, very welcome. Super happy to have you. This is my Monday watch list. This is kind of what I'm looking at doing all week long. And I just invite everybody. I have a trade group, and hey Dale, and I have a live trade group that we get really in depth with all of this stuff that I talk about. But the Monday run is just basically where I just kind of give my outlook for the whole week of what I would like to do and kind of how I'd like to see things play out. For anybody that's on for the first time, or for anybody that just doesn't know, I take kind of a mixed approach. I like to look at fundamentals like news announcements, like what central banks are doing, how employment numbers are looking, that kind of stuff. And then I like to look at technical analysis as well. I have created my own indicator, which I love and think it's totally amazing. And I should have a link up here for you guys on for that. But it's actually on the website. If you go to daytradersfx.com, it's one of the first posts on the blog. Which, by the way, that is my website, daytradersfx.com. And you can also find me on Twitter at the same place. So I want to make sure you guys know how to get a hold of me. Here is my email address. We'll just put that in there. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. I love Twitter as well, and I always get back to everybody as quick as possible on Twitter. That's a great way to communicate, and you can follow me on Twitter right there. You might be asking yourself, why would I follow this guy on Twitter? Well, I give out a lot of free trades on Twitter that are pretty darn good, so that's worth having a look at. If you decide that you would like to find out a little bit more about how we trade and how we kind of do our day-to-day stuff and our in-depth analysis of everything, then go to the website. That website link right there, that daytradersfx.com/join, is where you can get a 5-day free trial. And today is a great day to get a 5-day free trial because you can trade the entire week with us for free, and then at the end of the week you can decide if free was too expensive or if free is too cheap. So definitely have a look at that. We'd love to have you join us in the trade group this week, and it would be very nice to meet you all. Okay. That is that. Let's get right down to it. So as I mentioned, I like to look at the fundamentals. I like to see what the news is telling us. And we have a lot of kind of interesting news this week, and a lot of news that also isn't typically big moving news, but it's something we have to kind of keep an eye on regardless. We don't have anything too terribly crazy today. We have a little bit of Aussie news coming up in a couple of hours, and some Chinese CPI data at about the same time. So that, just keep an eye on Aussie pairs, but the business confidence report is not typically huge. The CPI can be pretty big for China, so keep an eye on that, and that can sometimes affect some of the Aussie pairs, so just keep that in mind. Tuesday is a pretty low news day, which is okay because sometimes the markets just need to take a breath. But we have from the central bank in Australia, Governor Stevens will be speaking, and that could be interesting. There's definitely movement that comes out of these central bank details. If anybody says, I don't care what the central bank says, that is totally fantastic, but it does move the market. So that's just kind of the one fact we have to face, whether you like trading the news or whether you think it's totally ridiculous or whatever it is. Central bank news moves the market, and we are interested in whatever moves the market. So That will be happening on Tuesday. Wednesday, we've got a good bit of news coming out. Some UK news, nothing too terribly crazy there. We always have to keep an eye on what Carney says. He'll be speaking later in the day on Wednesday, so we'll actually be able to kind of keep an eye on that in the trade group. He has definitely surprised a time or two or 3 or 4 or 5 or 28 before, so Carney could be speaking about anything on Wednesday, because he kind of follows his own agenda as well. So be prepared on any pound pairs to watch that. Just an hour after that, we have interest rate announcements for New Zealand. Pretty big expectation that those interest rates might actually be going down, even though they show here as expected to remain unchanged. There's probably going to be a rate cut coming out of New Zealand, but we'll see. But there's a high probability of that. And then later that day, we have employment numbers for Australia, which is always a big mover, at least most of the time a big mover. So Wednesday is a pretty heavy news day. Thursday, a couple of goodies to watch: retail sales, the U.S., a little bit of Canadian, some U.S. news, and then Friday is nothing too exciting, so we won't be doing much on Friday. We'll hopefully be done with everything by Thursday. So that's what we're looking at. Okay, so if I had to say my top 3 pairs that I'm most interested in right now, it would be the Euro dollar, the Euro CAD, and the pound dollar. And then I've got a couple of stragglers that we'll talk about as well. But these are kind of top 3 that I think are going to be great. One thing that I hugely believe in when it comes to trading is kind of this market seasonality kind of a thing. And when it comes right down to it, markets just go up and they just go down. If we look at a slightly longer term chart, we see like Euro dollar, for example. This is just very common. The Euro dollar in particular basically goes up for about a year, and then it goes down for about a year, and it goes up for about a year, and down and up and down, and so on. And that's just kind of how it goes. Now we have, first of all, we've seen a really massive movement from the highs of last year. So for the last, just about the last year or so, those highs just, just almost exactly. That last highest point on the Euro dollar was just shy of 140, and that was in May. That was early May of 2014. And here we are. We bottomed out. It looks like about March of 2015, just about a year right there. And so we're just about a year away from those previous highs. And the euro dropped like crazy. It dropped 3,500 pips. That's a pretty massive move. But it seems to be bottoming out. It seems to be giving us a pretty nice little inverse head and shoulders pattern right here on this daily chart. And I'm not sure that the euro versus the US dollar is going to be able to continue up for a year. But this is kind of that time that it at least has several months of the opposite direction of the trend. So it's just that simple. Markets go up and down. There's definitely some fundamental factors that will affect the euro dollar. For example, anything crazy that happens with Greece and any details that potentially happen with the UK, which there's all that talk about the UK potentially renegotiating their deal with the European Union, and so on. So there's those factors for sure, but just kind of the good old regular movement that we're going to see. I will not be surprised to see the euro dollar move up for probably the next couple of months, possibly into the end of the year, maybe even beyond. And it might be slow and it might be choppy, but I think we could see that happen. Now, things that will change that will be, for example, if the U.S. raises rates a little bit sooner than expected, that could derail the euro movement, and that'll be something we'll keep an eye on. If there's any major semi-traumatic news coming out of the European Union, that could change things a bit. But just kind of markets in general, I'm expecting the euro dollar to rise over the next couple of months. Here's the target that I'm looking for right now, and I'll tell you why this is. I love fib levels. They're just so easy to trade, and they're so easy to use, and they're just so great. I'm looking for the euro dollar. It's made this nice run down all the way from the highs to the lows, 3,500 beautiful pips. It has closed. It's moved above the 23% fib, closed above the 23% fib, had a big dip down. We all thought the euro was headed right back down again, but instead it made a nice little higher low, and it's coming right back up again. So our 23% Fibonacci level is just about 11300, just shy of 11300. And when we cross and close above or below that 38% fib, whichever direction we're going, there is such a high likelihood that the 38% fib gets reached. And I'm looking for the 38% fib on the euro dollar to get reached. Kind of at least. And that's 11800. I'm looking for a long-term crazy target. This might sound totally insane, of 11800 on euro dollar. Now, I don't know how much more beyond that it could potentially go, but I think 11800 is actually, as crazy as it sounds, very possible, and a very, realistic scenario. 120 is starting to feel far. Anything above 120 is starting to feel like it's anyone's guess at that point. But I think we have pretty good reasons, surprisingly enough, to believe that 11800 is going to get hit for euro dollar. Now, here's a couple of things that we can always look at. If this is a big inverse head and shoulders pattern with kind of a crazy shoulder there and a crazy shoulder in our kind of neckline and so on, we could potentially expect a fairly large movement. We could almost look for this thing going up into 120 and even breaking 120, but that feels like that might not be the case, at least in my bones. But we have a really great target and a lot of really great missed pivots right here at 11800, and I think that's a very, very realistic scenario and a nice move there. I would say on a lower case scenario, we're going to get 11500, 11550 at the very least on euro dollar. So be prepared for that. Okay, that was a lot of chit chat. How do we get into this trade? Where is our entry? How are we going to do this thing? Now, those of you that got my email, I sent my email out Sunday night and I said, we're going to have a really awesome opportunity to enter this euro dollar at a great price because it was sitting down here around 1100, and I don't love trading Mondays. But the euro just has kind of continued to creep on up, and it's just crept up a whole bunch. So I was looking at getting into the euro dollar down at the 11100, 11150-ish area, and it's a little bit above that. So I'm still looking to buy some dips. I would love to see entries a little bit closer to 1200. But if we can't get to 1200, I'm still going to start scaling into this trade little by little, and an entry now would not be the worst thing. But I will personally be waiting for about 1200 for my first kind of initial entry here, and then we'll just add positions and ride this thing on up. So we're going to need some pretty good sized stop losses for this, because the big breaking point is if the euro dollar gets back below 110.50, then that uptrend is pretty much non-existent. So yeah, it's a great one to hedge, Donovan. Absolutely, absolutely. So as long as it can stay above 110.50, then I am bullish. Below 110.50, I'm totally switching to the bear side on the euro dollar at this point. And those levels, can change as the weeks go on and so on. But that's what I'm looking for right now. So above 110.50, I want to be long, and I think we're gonna have I think we'll have a good opportunity to get in around 112 on this pair, and we'll need about 150 pips stop or hedge or whatever we might need there. But that's going to be what I'm looking for. My first initial target is going to be 11500, about 300 pips, and then I'm looking for 11800. I'm just doing it. Mark my words. That's what we're doing. So that's euro dollar. Questions, comments about that? Let me know. Same thing on the euro CAD. I almost like the euro CAD more than the euro dollar. I think that the US dollar could potentially have a few more upside surprises to it than the Canadian dollar. Nothing against Canada or the Canadian dollar, but I think the Canadian dollar might be in a little bit more of a slide than the US dollar. So I kind of like being long euro CAD a little bit more than being long euro dollar. Not to mention, there is one of the most fantastically excellent head and shoulders patterns that I've ever seen on a daily chart on the euro CAD. Very, very symmetrical, very fantastic and wonderful. There's our head and shoulder, and our neckline is almost a perfect horizontal line. We had a fantastic trade here last week at the break of 137.70. You can see that went okay. It made a big dip down, and then the euro CAD has just turned around and headed back up again. So from the low where it opened this week, it's up 200 pips in the last 16 hours or something. I'd like to buy some dips on this one as well. But I think that we have a very, very excellent chance of EuroCAD getting to 14500. So that's my profit target. So that's 500 pips from where it currently is. Euro dollar, I'm looking for, about 11200 entry up to about 11500, and then ultimately into 11800. So I'm looking for 300 to 500 pips on euro dollar. EuroCAD, I think we can just start getting into this thing and trading it up to 14500. Now, this is going to be a nice 500 pip trade, and I'm just, as confident as I can be about anything that we're going to get up there, and that's going to be a nice little move. But definitely getting a little bit of pullback, a little bit of a dip down. For the EuroCAD to retrace 100 pips to get down to 13900 is like no problemo. So here's 13900 right here. So that's where I would ideally like to get in a little bit closer. 13900, we have some pretty good support levels, some good stuff kind of happening through here, and I think that's great. So if I can get down to 13900, I'm definitely long EuroCAD, and I'm just going to let this thing rock and roll. Now, if EuroCAD gets below 137.75, so you can see that's a decent size stop loss. That's about 125 pips. But not horrible. But if it starts getting back below 137.75, even 137.50, then I'm starting to change my game a little bit on this EuroCAD, and I think we might see it even head down further. So as long as this stays above about 137.75, 137.50, 75 area, then I'm totally happy to be long EuroCAD, and I think it's a super awesome trade up into 14500. It's going to be a huge, great trade. I really don't want you guys to miss out on this, so mark my words on this one. Mark your charts, mark your calendars, whatever it's going to be. Let's make 500 pips on the EuroCAD, and let's make 300 to 500 pips on the euro dollar. After that, I have no idea what they're going to do, but I think those are very, very high probability trades coming up. So I want to be long EuroCAD, I want to be long euro dollar. Now, of course, as I've said, there are factors that can change things. If we get some crazy news out of the ECB or from Greece or whatever that really just mixes everything up, you got to be aware of that. Trading is all about managing situations. It's not about being right or wrong. I think we have a very, very high probability trade of on those two pairs, and 300 to 500 pips on each pair shouldn't be that difficult. But we do have to keep an eye on Greece, and we have to keep an eye on the Eurozone and anything crazy that might happen there. And we may need to jump out of trades at a loss and look for entries at better, lower prices if something like that happens. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. I think the pound dollar, as I said, this is one of my favorites. The pound dollar is an excellent, fantastic, super great opportunity as well. I've got a lot of lines in here, but the pound dollar seems to be holding, and I really like this thing, and I think we've got a great opportunity to start trading up into some nice levels as well. So the pound dollar has made a nice little run up, and it just continues to make these lower highs, higher lows. So it almost looks like on this daily chart that we've got a little bit of a head and shoulders pattern going, and I'm totally aware of that, and I'm totally watching that. But what I think we've got in the works is the same thing as we do on euro dollar, which is just a nice, decent long-term trend. Same thing on pound dollar. Our highs happened about July of last year, and then the thing just tanked 2,600 pips, and it's had a huge run up here. Look at that weekly chart. Look at that monthly chart even. It's just had this massive, massive run off these lows, and you can see that these lows have kind of held pretty well for the last several years. We had one little skip below there with that 2008 craziness, and we got 1,000 pips below this level, but it's held very well the whole entire rest of the time. So this kind of 145, 14600 seems to be a really, really rock solid level that the pound can't seem to get below. So it's making these nice runs up with these little dips. I just want to be long pound dollar. Now here are the levels that I'm looking for on pound dollar. We've talked about this in the group quite an extensive amount. We've had several trades on the pound dollar as of recent. I love 15300. I want to be long above 15300. And below 15200, I'm changing my tune, and I'm leaning towards the short side. So if we stay above 15300, I want to stay long. pound dollar, and I think we have some really, really excellent upper targets. We've got our 50% fib up here from this huge move down, and that's at 158.60 area, and I think that's a very, very high probability trade. But I think we're going to get the pound dollar possibly back up into the 160 zone. I just think we're probably going to see that a little bit sooner than later. So I'm looking for the pound dollar to make its way up into about 158.00 and possibly and ultimately up into 160. So I think that's great. So again, our levels to look for is we want to be long above 153.00 on pound dollar, and I think we can get a nice retracement even back to 153.00. I mean, heck, we're only 40 pips above that right now, so a nice little retracement to 153.00, stops, hedges, whatever you want to do below 152.00. So we need about 100 pips to keep an eye on there on the pound dollar. So that's looking super, super good. So that is as you can tell, we're doing a little potty training at the house. Stella needed everyone to know that she has gone poop. So there you guys go. I have a 2.5-year-old. Anyways, so that's what I'm looking for on pound dollar. I think this is going to be a super, super excellent. Thanks, Carol. I think this is going to be a super excellent trade coming up for sure. For pound dollar. So euro dollar, euro CAD, pound dollar are all looking great. A couple of stragglers that I think are pretty good. I'm looking at the dollar CAD a little bit. I liked it. I don't love it. The dollar CAD's okay. I like being short below 125.60, and I think there's some good opportunity there, but I'm not loving it. So I'm kind of staying out of that one. The two that I think are worth watching along with everything is Aussie New Zealand, especially with the New Zealand interest rate news coming. Aussie New Zealand will be interesting, and I think that we're probably going to see a continuation higher on Aussie New Zealand. So let's start looking for opportunities to get long and stay long this pair. You can see that we've had a huge, from the highest point to the lowest point that we can see here. It's about 138 all the way down to parity. The Aussie New Zealand has some very nice levels, and it has crossed some nice support zones and resistance levels and so on, and it's just struggling right here. This 10900 area is the 23% fib, and if we get above that, I'm completely 100% expecting Aussie New Zealand to make its way up into 114/11500, which is huge, which is massive. So so there's going to be some fantastic trades there. I would love to get some dips on Aussie New Zealand, buy some dips. I think some great levels to look for is 10700 and even all the way down to 10600. We start getting below about 10500, and I think that the tune is changing a little bit. If we don't get enough retracement, then I will happily just buy the break of 10900. I have no problem with that. I'll be long above 10900, or I'll be long down hopefully around 106, 107 area on Aussie New Zealand. So I think that's going to be a super, super awesome one. If dollar yen ever decides to go, which it may or may not, I don't know. If the dollar yen ever decides to go, I still want to be short the break of 123.75, and I think we have a nice opportunity of probably 200 to 300 pips down into about the 120 zone on dollar yen. If all these levels hold and everything kind of stays in place, then I'm going to change that story just slightly on dollar yen and look for opportunities to buy against 123.75. But at this point, I'm kind of looking for some opportunities to sell the break of 123.75 for 200 to 300 pips. So 123.75 looks good. Aussie New Zealand looks good, buying the dip about 100 to 150 pips lower with a profit target of, way up there, 11400. But my big trades and my favorite ones right now are buying euro dollar around 11200 with stops below 11050. Buying pound dollar around 15300, just a few pips below, with stops below 15200. And buying euro CAD down around 13900 with stops below about 137.75, 137.50. With profit targets all the way up there at 14500. So again, profit targets 14500 on euro CAD, 15800 on pound dollar, and 115 and 11800 on euro dollar. So those are going to be my huge focuses this week, and we're going to really hopefully pound some nice trades out there. But we're going to want to aggressively be getting into euro dollar, euro CAD, pound dollar trades as soon as possible. So be ready for that information for group members. For those, again, that want to see how we trade and see how we get some of these entries, go to this link right here and get a free trial, and you can follow us in the group and see how we that's not it. There we go. See how we trade some of this stuff. So you can see right here, daytradersfx.com/join is where we do the business. So I'd love to see you guys there. Great trades are coming, and we've got some fantastic setups in the works. I'll leave it at that, but thank you for attending. Questions, comments, please send them over. I'll get this video posted, and I'll answer any questions you guys have, and I'll throw up a couple of charts as well. So thanks a bunch, guys. Great to have you with us. And again, I welcome any questions or any comments at this moment.